Ad Astra is our mantra. Ad Astra to the stars. Ad Astra, it's who we are.
Welcome to Around Space. I'm Kent Miller. Today we're going to be talking about space art. I'm delighted to have with us David Robinson. David Robinson is a member of the International Association of Astronomical Artists. There are not a lot of people in this world who can do this work well, maybe 130 people worldwide. He has published, he has exhibited at the International Space Development Conference at least 4 times that I know of. His work has appeared in a textbook at Cambridge University and an ebook called The Curse of Europa, maybe 9 books in total. In terms of publishers, a lot of first-rate names here. Blackwell Publishing, Smithsonian Books, the National Geographic, HarperCollins, and he's appeared on a number of websites, including that of the National Space Society's website, where he has a gallery. He's done several articles with Ad Astra, maybe 6 or 7, and he's appeared on space.com. Welcome back to this table.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
So where are we traveling this time?
Well, this year we're going to be going to Jupiter
All right.
on a manned mission to Europa.
Okay.
And the first couple of shots that would be showing would be the actual spaceship that will get them there.
All right. Now, Europa is an icy moon.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Okay. So, all right. So, this first picture is the front end.
The front end,
yeah.
right? Obviously, this ship is assembled in LEO, low Earth orbit.
So it's modular.
Yes.
Right.
And all put together. You got a micrometeor shield in the front to hopefully protect the crew.
Because you're flying through the asteroid belt.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And then any micrometeor, hopefully this will be able to protect them as best as possible. Because of the speed needed to get from Earth to Jupiter. And you can see that besides the micrometeor shield in the front, you also have the return space vehicle that got them there, that brought the crew up from Earth.
Okay.
That's already locked in place.
Sticking horizontal or vertically, maybe.
Right, exactly, into a hatch so they can enter from the front.
Okay.
And then you have a centrifuge section in the front.
So that cylinder rotates?
That's correct.
Okay, so an artificial gravity.
Exactly.
Okay.
So to try to make it as much Earth-like as possible, so you won't have any degradation and muscle tone and things like that.
Bone loss.
Yes.
Yeah.
On this type of mission, you're talking easily somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 years.
Out and back?
Out and back, right.
Oh, all right.
So for this extended length of time and space, there is a lot at work physiologically on the body. So you want to try to keep the astronaut as physically fit as possible, so when they do reach their destination, they have the strength and ability to be able to perform their tasks when they do finally land on Europa.
Okay.
Okay. And then you have the section after the.
So behind the cylinder, there's a sort of box-shaped section.
It's kind of angled section that holds a life support.
Food supplies?
Food supplies, some scientific experiments. There are radiators on both sides to keep the heat down from, and also the fact that as you continue to head towards the back, you have two sections that contain two different landers, and those little, it's like V-shaped deals right here. They're actually cranes that when the lander pods open up, these cranes will attach to the lander and pull them out.
Okay. Okay. Cranes are useful. They're
Absolutely.
Cranes on Mirror, for example, back when we had.
Or on the International Space Station. It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same system used on the International Space Station. It's the same type of cranes because they don't lift very much weight on Earth, but out in space, they're definitely the right vehicle
Okay.
to be used.
All right.
All right.
Now this is the midsection.
The midsection, and you have both experimental extended labs on the outside to perform different experiments on the way there.
So over on the left, I guess it's purplish color.
Mm-hmm.
So there's labs there. Okay.
Right, and then you also have a rotating section.
That rotates.
Exactly, for artificial gravity, and helps them. That's more like for their crew quarters to keep them
Okay.
I guess, as healthy as possible. As you continue to head down the main spine of the spaceship, you have your first section of fuel tanks.
Okay, there's 9 tanks there.
There are 9 tanks times, basically, there's
it's more than that, 'cause
there are
we- 'cause
18, there are 18 tanks on each
Okay.
section. And then you
So
move.
that's a metal truss that keeps everything.
That is correct.
Connected.
Right.
Okay.
Everything is connected to the metal truss, and all the communication wires and cables are along all the way down
I
the
guess
truss.
pipes as well.
Absolutely.
If you're pumping fuel.
That's
right?
correct. And then you have your communication section in the center.
So a big dish there. Okay.
And also you have this, these two arms that swing out, and this is for a radar that allows you to hopefully scan ahead
Okay.
further. And then as you move to the last section, you have the engine section, which is a mix of nuclear plus the Vasmir
Okay.
propulsion system. And
It's
again,
good to have that far away from the crew.
yes, as far as possible. That is
with
correct.
fuel tanks in between.
Yeah, anything to help to keep the radiation down would be definitely a plus,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
And it has redundant system. You have 4 engines.
Okay.
So that should hopefully, once they are lit off, they remain basically burning for extended periods of time, especially when you're using the Vasmir system.
All right.
Because
So
it
it's an
needs-
ion thruster.
Exactly. So you need a lot more thrust to build up over a certain amount of time to build that speed up, so they can
Right.
head out.
Okay.
All right, and then you have the next section. You actually have
This is a
profile view and a view looking straight down on the ship, and you can also see the radiators
okay.
on the front.
So
And
there's
the
those
two,
white panels that stick out. That's thermal radiators.
that is correct.
I see. Okay.
Right, and you can see that
Yeah.
the return vehicle also has solar panels
Oh,
to
yes.
help power that when it gets back into close to Earth,
Right.
so it can control its descent. And that will
Now-
eventually, that top section will be jettisoned, only the capsule will return with the crew. And this capsule is designed for 6 astronauts.
All right. Now, if you're going out to Jupiter, that's a bit too far for solar cells.
That is correct. So this is only going to be used once you get back towards Earth, when it will be used.
Okay. The rest of the time, you're relying on nuclear.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Nuclear power, absolutely. And you can see that you have the 2 cylinders that you have both landers in,
Okay.
because you have a redundant system. Never say never when you're heading out that far. You don't want to all of a sudden end up in a situation where that you have one lander that has failed for some reason or
Right.
another, and also then you also have backup. So if anything happened, that lander inadvertently has crash landed or anything of that nature, you would have means to retrieve, hopefully, the astronauts.
Okay. Wow. All right. So redundancy.
That's correct.
All righty.
All right. And then you have the vehicle that will actually take them from,
This is a close-up of the lander, Earth lander.
yes, the ship that will ferry the astronauts from Earth to the Savannah, and then once it docks, it will remain there for the entirety of the mission. And then, as the ship is, obviously getting close to Earth, it will jettison and separate. And unfortunately, we still don't have the means nor money to have the fuel available that we can reuse the ship.
Oh, I see. So it's expendable.
So the whole ship is expendable because we continue to throw the entire thing away.
Oh, dear.
So we end up with just the capsule section. That's the very front end.
The conical section.
Exactly.
Right.
Everything else is jettisoned.
Okay.
So that's,
All right.
and then we have our first picture of the Savannah leaving Earth's little system,
So that's the moon on
passing
the
the
left
moon,
side. All right.
right? And
Now, let me just ask you about the lighting. You see the moon is lit, I guess, from the right side,
right?
and the spacecraft too. Now, your software somehow does that?
Yes, it actually will, depending where you have the light hitting the actual model and the moon, it does a very accurate job.
All right, everything's consistent with the
Everything
shadows.
is consistent with the shadows and everything.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's exactly, if you were there, that's exactly how you would see the lighting.
All right, very nice, very nice. I see the blue glow of the engines.
That's correct. So they've been lit off, and now you're on your way.
All right.
All right, this is just another kind of a beauty shot, you may say, of the Savannah after it's passed Earth's moon on its way towards Jupiter, and it will, on its way there, more than likely pass close to Mars for possibly a boost.
All right. I noticed the main communication dish
Right.
is, I guess, pointed backwards.
That's correct.
Presumably back to
Towards
Earth.
right.
Towards Earth. Okay. You're going to need a big dish if you're as far as Jupiter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then as you start to enter the Jovian system and you're getting close to Jupiter, Jupiter finally starts showing up very faint off in the background. You can actually see it right on
So
the
that's
left
on the
side
left
of
side
the
there,
micrometeor shield. And in that you actually, if you could actually zoom up, you could actually see all 4 of the major moons from Ganymede to Io, Europa, and Callisto.
All right. I don't think TV resolution will quite get you there yet. But,
Yeah, exactly.
But you have some closer shots, yes?
That is correct. Yeah.
All right.
And then we have a nice little full pro shot looking from the right side of the ship. And the other views you'll see is no difference. It's just a different perspective of the view that you're seeing.
So in terms of the computer, you've just shifted the point of view.
That is correct.
Right.
And
All the physical objects are where they were in the previous
exactly.
shot.
You know, the red on the head, exactly.
Okay.
Same star field, same everything.
Yeah.
And then you can see Callisto way off in the background.
Way on the right.
Right? And then you have the shadows of both Europa and Io, where Io is closest to Jupiter,
So
and then
that
Europa
spot
a little
that's
further
near,
out.
you have the giant red spot, yes? And then I guess at 10 o'clock from that position, I see a little black dot.
Right.
That's the shadow of one of the moons.
That is correct. And
Okay.
you have shadows of both Io and Europa, and then Ganymede way off to the left of both Io and
All right.
Europa.
A little hard to see, but
Right.
we'll get closer.
That's correct. And then we have another angled shot of Savannah heading into the Jovian system. Again, you can see Callisto under the bottom because it's more of an angle that shot you're seeing. You can also see the shadows, and as the Europa is transiting past the Terminator, you can see how that the shadow of Europa is kind of elongated.
Okay, so it's the white stripe directly above the red spot, the giant red spot.
That's
and
correct.
We see a couple shadows here.
That's correct. And
Okay.
the one closest that's more of a circle is Io, whereas the one that's Europa is more elongated, you can see as
Oh,
it
I
getting near the
see. Yeah, right,
terminator.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And
Oh, now we're getting pretty close here.
yeah, we're getting closer. And again, we still see the four major moons because pretty much everything that I've read so far is that when you enter the Jovian system, that these would be the four basic moons you would be able to see visibly. You know, if you were looking outside the window when you were hitting it to the system itself, these would be the major dominating
Right.
moons of Jupiter.
Now, there's another like dozen or even
Oh, there's
20
like,
more.
There's I believe there's close to 60 altogether.
Oh my goodness.
So
but they're tiny.
yes, they're very tiny.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that it's like its own little solar system.
Yeah.
And
Very
again, you
impressive.
can see the shadow of Europa and Io, and Ganymedes way off in the background.
Now, I guess just as a size comparison, that great red spot could contain several Earths.
Absolutely. They said something about altogether about 3.5 to 4 Earths altogether. And as far as we've known, we've been basically noticing this red spot for about a little over 400 years now.
So it's basically a hurricane, isn't
Yes.
it? Yeah. So
Yes.
a heat engine, like the hurricanes on Earth. Yeah. Okay.
And then we're getting closer still. And again, you can see Callisto over to the far right, right
Behind the engine there.
At the side of the engines, and you can see as that the high gain antenna has actually turned a little bit, so it's trying to be aiming more towards where Earth would be in that distance.
Okay.
And then again, you can also still see the 3 other moons. You can see Europa, Ganymede, and then Io. And if you really look very closely, you can also see that there are active volcanic activity happening on Io.
I don't think TV pixels will show that, but
Yeah, but like I said, I mean, they're pretty. If you saw the right size image, it is very visible.
Yeah.
Surprising enough.
Yeah.
And then again,
Oh, my
here's
goodness.
another angle shot, and
Getting closer and closer.
getting closer, and you can see Europa is the center, Io is over to the left, and Ganymede is way over, closest to Jupiter, but not in distance because it's further
It's much further away.
afield, right?
I'd like to just stop you just for a moment. I'm really struck by the detail of the circulation of I guess air on Jupiter. How did you get this? Is this space imagery or?
Yes, this is actually this is an actual picture of Jupiter, and this is done in part by the Galileo mission to Jupiter, plus as Cassini actually passed
On its way to Saturn.
on its way to Saturn, that they were using Jupiter to shoot a lot of test shots. So a lot of the data that they got were just extraordinary clarity.
Yeah.
And this is a 360-degree view that has been mapped to a sphere.
Okay.
So it's exactly all the way around. It's exactly how the planet looks at that given time this image was shot. And they actually have an animation of this image, which is pretty amazing, on the NASA website. And they had some great shots, but a lot of this is done for the fact of some post-processing on my part through some other editing programs. I won't mention any of the other programs, but they're quite high-end, and it's allowed me to really clean the image up. But you know, surprisingly enough, we had very, very clean images to begin with. I was very impressed with the optics they had on both the Galileo and then the Cassini probe.
Yeah. This is beautifully done, I have to say. Yeah.
And then we have another little close-up view of the high gain antenna.
Yep.
You can see the first section of fuel tanks for Delta V to get into orbit. So we can even get near Europa, and you can see Europa off into
Takes
the
a lot of
left
Delta V
that.
to park yourself in Jupiter's orbit.
Absolutely. And then there's Io, with you can see some of the volcanoes being lit off. And now we're trying to get a more of a size perspective. Obviously, still that Savannah is still closer in the perspective than Jupiter is, but looking at it, you can, and this time you can actually see right there.
That's the second moon from the left.
Right, is second moon from the left. You can actually see the volcanoes.
Now I can see the
erupting.
volcano there.
Yes, exactly. So it actually is there.
It's beautifully done. Oh my goodness.
And then we have another one, and this is again another kind of beauty shot. You can see obviously the great red spot and how turbulent
Yes.
Jupiter's atmosphere is, and basically we're talking winds, hurricane forced winds. You're talking 300-400 miles per hour.
These individual ripples are like 1,000 miles in
Absolutely.
size. Yeah.
So it's quite daunting. And again, you can see Io, and you can see the little volcanoes.
We got a couple of volcanoes now.
Yeah.
Okay,
and now we finally managed to get to Europa.
Now this is an icy moon.
Yep.
And we're looking basically at a big ice field with cracks in it.
That's very correct. There's actually, and well, you can see Jupiter in the background with Io and Ganymede. Okay. But this is the Savannah basically inserting itself into the orbit around Europa, and we're talking. They're saying that there's more water on Europa than all the oceans on Earth.
Well, they have to be under the ice, I presume. All right.
A crust that can range anywhere from about 500 feet up to, they're saying, close to 5 miles.
Oh dear. All right.
So,
all right.
And all this, the tidal forces, all these cracks you're seeing, they're constantly being smoothed over and everything from the tidal forces being yanked and pulled back and heated from being so close to
so the tidal forces create the cracks, but then they freeze up.
That is correct.
Yeah. All right. So
and then we get a profile shot of the Savannah orbiting Europa. And again, very nice image of Europa. This is done, this image was actually put together by a astrophysics person that worked for JPL and did a remarkable job, because this is actually a collage of multiple images, and when they finally finished the image, it was just remarkable.
Oh, this is perfect. I don't see any of the artifacts that you would normally see
exactly.
from
That's
a collage.
what I'm saying. That's what really just blew me away. That was just a remarkable picture.
Right.
And now we get to the actual surface of Europa, looking back at Jupiter.
Shot.
Yeah, and you can see this is a pressure ridge field. You can see how the ice fields are being pushed up from the pressure. And there is, actually, if you really take a real hard look, you can actually see Io casting a shadow above the red.
All right, but now we're going to land on this, right?
Yes, and then we're going to end up landing. And there's one of the landers. Savannah.
You even have a smudge mark underneath the lander. I guess that's from the
engines.
Engines, yeah. Okay.
And
oh, here we go. Now we got a proper close-up.
Right.
I'd like to just mention that you use a software named Bryce, and it's mostly meant for landscaping.
That is correct. And everything else, all the models, all the hardware, is done by just using some very simple geometry.
But this is where the landscaping capability really comes.
It really does, and I think it speaks for itself. All the textures and everything, I created.
This is beautiful, yeah.
And then we have, obviously, Savannah is finally leaving Europa and is off. And then we have what I call Jupiter Rise, right above Europa, and you can see some of the pressure ridges of Europa.
That belongs in a movie.
I hear you. And then last shot is just a picture of Europa with Io in the background, and one of the latest shots we have of Jupiter that was actually shot by the Cassini on its way. And
my goodness, you know, the richness of the colors and the turbulence on Jupiter is just astonishing.
And you can see how that it has definitely changed the wind flow above the giant red circle. It has definitely changed from what we saw earlier. So it is definitely very active, very volatile, and is constantly in flux.
Right, right.
And
it's not the only spot. It may be the only
right.
red one, but there's white ones as well.
Actually, yeah, and actually there was a new red spot that was actually growing in intensity, and it actually started getting close to the major one. And I believe at some point that they said that they were actually going to
merge.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. So I don't know if it has done that at this point or not, but you can also see, because Jupiter also has rings. And you can't see it very well in this picture,
right.
but you can actually see just a very faint outline of the rings. Because it's always the
I think it's very hard to see on the television.
Right.
But I think what's outstanding about you and many other astronomical artists is you really try to get the details right.
Yes.
So I mean the rings may be hard to see, but that's because they really are hard to see.
Exactly, yeah. And unless you were actually shooting down at the rings, you would never very see it because it's very, very thin, but the light just hitting it really does give it a great uniqueness.
All right, well done. Thank you so much. Ken. And thank you for joining us here at Around Space. This was David Robinson. He's a space artist. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.